hope that you guys have some idea from the lectures and then from the class to defend your faith. But it's not easy. So every situation is different from others, and sometimes even though we are in the same situation, but the people's perspectives are different, right? And that's why it's not easy. That's why we need contextualization. So how they think about what we believe, and then try to get the relevancy about their topic, and then we try to get it, and then try to talk to it the what we believe, and then, but it's not easy. That's why sometimes we need a lot of studies, and then we had a confidence in what we believe. This morning I read a Bible about Jesus Christ expelled the evil spirit from the man who is mute. The evil spirit is mute spirit, right? And then the people said, oh, he expelled what? The evil spirit. So which power? And they said, oh, Jesus Christ had evil power, and Jesus Christ was Beelzebul's power. So the king was a king of the evil spirit, and he expelled Jesus Christ expelled the evil spirit. And there's debating, and so when we see the same phenomena, same things, but we have a different perspective, and how we approach to them, how we discuss with their perspective. Because basically sometimes it's really, really hard, because they don't give them any authority about Bible, they don't give any authority about our faith, and they don't give any authority about Jesus Christ. And then there is a hardest part that Jesus Christ faced, right? And just think about it, the time when Jesus Christ came up, and then he proclaimed the kingdom of God and teaches the scripture. It was different from other rabbis, other teachers, and then it's really powerful, and interpretations, and then powerful miracles and signs and wonders, and a lot of people couldn't see doing things at the time. That's why a lot of people follow Jesus Christ, and then they want to see more, right? They wanted to see more. But always the other side, and try to argue with them, try to get rid of Jesus Christ from the people, and because it's related to their interests, right? And then always try to make argument, and make Jesus Christ a fool, but it didn't work. It didn't work, because Jesus Christ is God. He knows everything. Sometimes he knows what they are thinking about, and even though they don't, they didn't talk about, right? But still, there's a lot of debating going on. Nowadays, it's really, really different from the Jesus period times, and it's really different from about 300 years ago. And nowadays, it's everybody has their own belief and their own truth. It's the trend is like that. And then sometimes if we don't understand what kind of and most people philosophy and and most people the cultural trend, then it's not easy to talk to others. I'm an older generation and my kids are different, but as a parent, when they respect me, and as a parent, I can talk to them, even though there's a big cultural gaps, right? And like this, and then always, if you are around about 30s, 20s, maybe I'm a 50s, and then think about, and our upbringings, background is totally different, and then even though even though the modernism and postmodernism influence on me, but because of my faith, because of my belief, and it's totally different from the trend of the world, cultural trend. And if you know yourself, and if you know other self, and then others, if you know others, other selves and others, and then you can win over you can win over your argument, right? You can win argument over the others argument. Just that's the today lecture about was a cultural trend now. Cultural trends of nowadays. Sometimes we just take it granted and we don't think about it, just follow the trend. And if you are outdated of the trend, then sometimes you are really isolated, and then you are alienated from your friends group and from their community. That's a feeling. That's why people, even though they don't have depth of knowledge, and they want to get the superficially kind of one-two sentence, and they pretend to know whole things, and then just go to the social media, and then it's about some people are talking about something and just want to read one-two sentence, and they kind of post their idea, not in depth, right? That's the kind of society nowadays. So try to know the cultural trend nowadays, and then we can see what we believe, and then how can we prepare for for the kind of challenges, right, from the others. So I don't know how much you guys agree with the cultural trend, because of your cultural background is different and your faith is different, and then maybe let's go over. First of all, there's a big shift in philosophy. It's like enlightenment, after enlightenment, and then papers, the thinking system, way of thinking, thought is totally changed. So we call that the shift is modernism, and there's modernism and pre-modernism. And what's pre-modernism is that before the modernism, it's really based on their belief and tradition. But after the modernism is kind of broke the frame of the thought and thinking, and try to implant a different way to understanding the religion and society and the knowledge. After the modernism is was the author of the textbook, and then he said late modernism, a little bit from the postmodernism, and then postmodernism. There is kind of trend of the philosophy and then cultural trend, and we can see today, and then we can know where we are, and then how can we understand the others, and then and how can we know where the others, the people who you are talking about are standing. What is pre-modernism? Pre-modernism. Maybe when like atheists or the non-Christians, sees Christians, they live in pre-modernism period. So pre-modernism is what? In the pre-modern era, the modernism is really towards the Enlightenment, and then it's a really big influence. That is the kind of divider, and so people believe in the supernatural. They believe the God. They believe the transcendence, right? They believe it. So most people believe in that, and sometimes they cannot see, they cannot prove it, but by tradition and community, by the communities and rules and customs or whatever, and then they believe it. Otherwise, they are left out from their community, right? And so people assume that God or the gods had created the world, and that there was a spiritual realm. We cannot prove it, we cannot see it beyond nature. That's why most every society or people of modernism, they believe something. There is created, and if you go to Africa, if you go to kind of one of the tribes in Africa, and then they have their own gods, right? Sometimes the stone may be a god, and the tree may be a god, and there's an evil realm is there, there's a good god is there, bad god is there. They're like this. Maybe people say they are really primitive, and say that they are really and they are really not modernized. They still live in the myth, and maybe think their way, but that's their life. That's their life. And that's so they saw the nature as a point beyond itself as was a transcendent reality. So beyond the nature, and something's adsolute being, and like a God is there, right? They worship it, and they admire it, they fear it, right? That's the basic idea of the pre-modernism, right? Because of the Enlightenment, right? And look at this, society took for granted that there is a purpose in the universe. They believe that. And there is no caste. At that time, caste system, but still, it's natural though. Just think about flowers and trees and seasons, and something has a purpose. And traditional religious institutions were viewed as authority, and like until Middle Ages, right? Still, even not in Christianity, but if you go to other tribes and countries, and then just think about Muslim countries, who has authorities, caliphate, right? And the religion, religious institution. If you go to a tribe, and then you can see who has power. Maybe there is a chief, and then who is what? Witch doctor. Who is the spirit? Like this. They have power. And authority should be revered. They provide ultimate frameworks through which people live their lives, right? When they say, and they know how to do, and they try to follow the traditional way, and try to expel the evil spirit. Sometimes we don't understand, and then there's a lot of different ways though. Each culture has a different their own things, and then based on the Christianity, and then maybe we can have kind of a unity of the because of faith, and but just think about without if there is no Christianity, and then I grew up in Korea, and then but I grew up in the rural area though. I talked about my mom's how she worshipped other things, and then I can see though, and then when I was young, and then sometimes somebody's really sick, and then shamans, a group of people came to, and they have ceremonies, and then the whole night, through the night, and then sometime after that, people come, the sick people, the sick is go out. So when we see that a lot of the religions is based on their shamanism that they had in the culture. So usually so religious institutions who is their kind of leaders, and then has power. It's a kind of, it's not separate, but some the pre-modernism not separated. Nowadays is still almost same. There's a shaman and witch doctors there, and then they are not the chief in the chief in society or tribe, and then but still has power. Okay, these institutions were also central from the. It's very neat closely, right? And that's why it's kind of a close-knit community, and the people did not see themselves simply as individual, really collective. So we say now is collective society and individualistic society. So I grew up in most Asian cultures, and it's based on the collective society. But if you come to Western society, it's totally different. They are individualistic society based on the enlightenment. People did not see themselves simply as an individual, but rather as a member of the corporate whole. The faith and the obedience of the individual were viewed in the light of how they impact on community. Just think about it. And pre-modernism. Most, still, if you are Christian, and then I'm a Christian, right? And then I believe it's supernatural, and I believe transcendent reality. It is God. And then there is a purpose of the universe, according by God's providence. Going little by little, like a redemptive history. And my life is part of God's big pictures, and then the universe moves forward by the transcendent reality, the plan of the transcendent, the purpose of the transcendent reality, right? I'm a part of that. I believe that one. So traditional religious authority will be as authorities, and then because of the Western influence and the individualistic society, and then not as much as before, but still we give them, we respect the pastors, and we respect the church leaders, but not like before. But if you go to another country like Korea, and then kind of respect, degree of the respect is different in the American church and Korean church, based on the culture, right? And then think about it, church community, the corporate communities are really, really need together in faith, right? Without faith, we don't know each other, but because we believe in God and then we know Jesus Christ and Jesus Christ our Savior, that is our confession, right? And that's why, because of that one, we need it together. So still maybe people see that the Christians and they still live in the pre-modernism. What is modernism? Okay. So a lot of significant thinkers, philosophers, and began to think about questioning about traditional authority, how it is really right. And churches and traditions and scripture and even community, right? They are thinking about it. So eventually, the modernism, people rejecting the truth propagated by this traditional authority individual, traditional authority. Okay, and they think, question about it, maybe there's other way, rejecting. And then individuals attempt to discover truth by laying aside all presuppositions and only believing what was evidence. What was the method to make sure it is true? Think about they don't believe traditional authority anymore, and then they try to discover the truth. How? We call the scientific way, empiricism. Certain process, logical reasoning process, and it's cogent, and they believe it. And there is evidence is there, and then we try to and logically and with the reasoning and try to understand the whole things and what it makes sense. And it's evident, and you believe that's the knowledge, that's the truth. So from that time, in modernism is a scientific method, and then like experiment and empiricism is really important. And there's a base, the method to know which is truth or not. So we cannot prove by the scientific method and way it's not a truth. And there is a specific method is there, and just to think about it, faith and a lot of stuff you cannot prove with the science, especially the spiritual realms, right? And that's why this was a problem in missions, and they 200, like 300, and they got trained in the way. And then when Western missionaries went out to the tribal mission tribes and tried to share the gospel, and they still believe that spiritual realm, but they don't believe. But still exist, they acknowledge it. And then nowadays, and then when we send out the missionaries, and then what? They always open to the spiritual realms, right? just we cannot explain with science because it's nothing, it's a myth. That's a wrong concept. But modernism start build up the knowledge based on the scientific method. They trend and go and go and go on. That's why a lot of people ignore that, just ignore the phenomena that they can explain by scientific method. So modernism is like that, and based on the scientific method, and then experiment, and naturally the question becomes, what is the self-evidence? That is the self-evidence. It's understandable. It cannot be. It can be proved by a scientific method. How can anyone know that what they see is a reality? It's true, right? They little bit think differently, and how does one know there is a God, and how does one know anything? That's kind of questions coming out, and then try to understand in different perspective, from the different perspectives. So the modernism is a scientific principle is what become a universal. It means that it's a kind of truth. And if you can test it, and then it's a kind of prove it, I don't like the word prove, and then proved by scientific principles and method, and then it's not true. That's a myth. And just think about it, and the methodology, and keep in, and contributed rise in skepticism. Even though they're studying in there, but a lot of things cannot explain by the scientific principles and scientific method, right? There is another skepticism coming up. Because even though we think that we cannot solve the important problem, so questions in life. What about the afterlife? We don't know. We cannot, because we never been in it. Maybe once in a while people say that I've been died 2 hours and then came back to life, and then they talk about what they experienced, and then maybe, but we cannot explain. That is a kind of modernism's limitation, but still, based on the modernism, we grew up, right? We grew up. When you study science, and then even though I know still faith is a little bit different, but all the knowledge is based on the scientific method. There's a pure science, there's a social science. There is a try to, this is research this is kind of validate because of they certain amount of people, and then they see the procedures and the whole things. This is, it's pretty okay, and then the journal articles accept your research. Any question about the modernism? Just remember that modernism is totally, they have seen the world in different perspective, and then with your logical reasoning, and then scientific method, and then they try to see the evidence. evidence. And just think about a big term from the pre-modernism, right? Never thought about it that way. Just think about God, we cannot prove it. That's why. What about the late modernism? Main modernism, the author is kind of little bit separate from the postmodernism. And let's see the late modernism. Postmodernism tends to give the impression that people period we are now living in is very opposite of modernism. Postmodernism is very, very different from the modernism. Just think about. And then postmodernism, we cannot rely on the scientific method. That's true. Just new research coming out and then challenge the old research, and the new research coming out, all challenge another, less older than article, researchers keep developing, So remember, there's a totally different opposite way, the postmodernism. But it's late modernism is this one. It's like, still, late modernism has key, still, sustained by key principle of enlightenment that still at work, still there, right? And still, they use a lot of logical reasoning in the scientific way, method. And this curious matter, that's why it's not a postmodernism. Postmodernism totally different from the opposite way to the modernism, but late modernism still practicing, stay in the influence of the modernism. So the late modernism is like a reason that since everyone approaches the external world with the perceived framework for understanding it, like this, and everybody they have their own understanding. Like it means that, and when you see the outside of the world and then beyond the nature of the beyond, and then beyond the what can you see, and then everything from their own genes to the basis of their cultural environment, right? It's from their cultural environment, but still they say all the images that are individual perspective, a little bit different though. Even though they use the scientific way and they logic and there is no universal things. That's the late modernism. Can you see that? A little bit difference from the modernism? Right? That's a different story. So you gotta know that there is a kind of added individual perspectives. Individualism is very important. Just think about from the time what is coming out then. Pluralism and relativism. Usually relativism is really based on what truth, values, their ethics, moralities. We have different things. That's relativism. But pluralism is, except that one, we are different usually. You're the Muslim, I'm Hindus, I'm Christians, we are different. They don't talk about the what? The truth. They don't talk about the ethics, moralities. They don't talk about their values. That's a pluralism, right? That's a lay modernism. A little bit simply, you can see what is pre-modernism and post-modernism and lay modernism. What is postmodernism instead? They don't trust anymore the scientific way. There is no scientific knowledge is not absolute truth anymore, because postmodernism is kind of they accept what they had what personal perspectives. So lay modernism is set the authority of the individuals and the personal freedom of against the claim of tradition. This is modernism, right? Still, they standing on ground, but they really set the autonomy of the individual and the what personal freedom is really important. Just think about the Western society. That's based on that one. Nowadays, the freedom. That's why the people who comes from the collective society like Korean, they don't understand why the America cannot control their COVID well, like Korea and Japan and China. There is their political system is different, and ideology is different. So the South still rules, but the shift from the late modernism began to expose the neutrality, right? That's me. So we don't know yet. Even though that is a kind of only modernism as a means, and then but still they put the neutrality. That's the late modernism. And but still, it has two one. Even though they set aside there on this only modernism, neutrality, but still, and this one, humans could control nature through the precise reasoning and science. So that's illusion. That's illusion, right? That's the late modernism. Just think about it, and from the modernism and late modernism. The modernism establishes something totally different. From the different perspective. What was the foundation is in reasoning and scientific way, right? Methodology. And what's the self-evidence and what results from the scientific methodology. And then what is it? And late modernism said that we cannot understand and we cannot control everything. So that's illusion. That's illusion. So this late modernism what leads to either arbitrary relativism or hopeless skepticism. We already think the relativism depends on your perspective, individual's perspective. Or I can have a different truth, I believe, and my own values and my own moralities. Can you see the transition to the postmodernism a little bit different? Yeah. Modernism is totally different from the postmodernism, opposite way, but there's between the late modernism is kind of a bridging to the modernism, postmodernism. You consider all this one and relativism and individual freedom and then what? Freedom and personal freedom. That's individual, autonomy of the individuals, right? There's a whole less skepticism is that there is no truth, we cannot find any truth. Chaotic. So James Hunter, he puts everything in the way like the enlightenment of the own quest for certainty, right? They try to find the certainty and truth. Result is not in the discovery of new certainties. No. They cannot find the certainty eventually, but rather, pervasive astringent skepticism. That question all and suspect all and distrust and then disbelieves all. That's a lay modernism. What is the postmodernism? And just think about he's at a totally different opposite way, and then to really emphasize what? The autonomy of the individuals and individual freedom, and then just think about what is the standard of the truth. No. Modernism, forensics about modernism, and then just whatever you feel good and do it, it's their values. What is we are happy, and that's the way that you can take. That is a kind of different, and then really think about, and nowadays postmodernism in society, then we cannot, everybody has their own standard. Like pluralism, okay, everybody's different, everybody are different, unique. But Christianity, beyond the what? Diverse, it has a unity in faith. Who is a human being? Who are the human beings? Or it's a creation of the natures. But nowadays, in really, individuals and freedoms, which are really basic standard of their kind of cultures and thinking and life and everything. And then that's why it's not easy. It's not easy, right? Their land is different, but they believe that their land is true. That's postmodernism. There's two terminology that explain the current cultural trend word, and then there's an immanent frame and the age of the Spinmeister, and then in German word is Spinmeister, and the immanent frame is referred to in in the current cultural context, people, cultural context, that people view everything in terms of natural and the supernatural order. That's natural. There's no supernatural. That's imminent prayer. So, imminent prayer means that, and we can best way to understand this two-story house building, and think about my house and my house is one story, but some people has two-story house, right? And one story is really people live in what's religious values and traditional values based on the supernatural order. That is the first story. Second story is a little bit higher, and then they have their own, not based on the supernatural things, but they have a little bit higher standard of life. Not the convenient, not just for the convenience. So that is kind of understanding of them. And so people can live in people can live in second stories, and then little bit more based on the first, and but little bit they put the reasoning in scientific way, and then we have a better understanding of the word and the truth, right? That's an imminent frame. But this frame creates the Nova effect. It refers to the Nova effect, which describe how, even with the frame, there is been multiplication of the greater and greater variety of different spiritual options. Just think about it, and then big one is there is a lot of different multiplication of the spiritual realities. Just think about how many gods in your countries people believe. Different nowadays, and New Age is here, right? We cannot see. The Christianity is here, and Hindu is here, and then Muslims here. Lot of different spirituality though. I don't know, we don't know how many kind of cultures out there and how many sects out there. There's a Nova effect. Even they have their own foundation that people have first maybe use everything natural, right? That's nowadays, that's why we had a Nova effect, and then, multiplication of a greater, I don't know the greater, but still a lot of different spirituality came out. What about the age of the spinmeister? People really think about the power relationship. PR. So how they are really thinking, really considering how kind of communicate, from the organization to the public to maintain, cultivate the public images. And that's why they are really cautious about what they said. That's a PR. Really, thinking about public relations. Just think about how we are spined by, social medias and news and then products, and just think about it. And a company like a company, and then try to make one product, and here is and social media and then news and TV, and then they kind of projected their product, right? And they advertise their product, and then so think about, we have a lot of news and social media and communications and a lot of things are coming up. So which one is we need, which one we need, have to rely on? That's why it's hard. And then how can we survive and keep spinning from other things? That's one of societal. And sometimes we don't know which one is really important, which one is true. Just what about manipulation of media? If you believe 100% of the report from the media, if you just follow the media and you don't know that the other side who said and published articles and opinions and just follow the news, you don't know the truth. Maybe you know the truth then. You can consider what they said as a truth, right? That's the age of the spin meisters. Very quick, very fast. Here is, and then I'm going to show the slide. And here is a PR in the Hugo Heckler is a really one of the representative of this, and then he showed us a communication strategy. He talked about the communication strategy, and here is then basic. I didn't know how many people, how we are influenced by that, like that, and then that's the way that a lot of people learn and the school teaches. Stay on a simple message, okay? Don't do a complicated message, and they're not going to understand you. They're not going to follow you, and make it leads to complicated issues, rather than dealing with the complex reality. That's one of the communication, and the appeal to emotion, rather than taking time to reason with the audience. What about think about all the commercials. Sometimes it's really, last time I saw it's a vulgar, something is really, I don't know. It's just totally different from the sexuality, but it's just using. So appeal to emotion. So when you go to church and people, their sermons are really good, and then they really appeal to people's emotion, kind of relevant to their life. They don't think about the reason and the reality, what God said. And they want to be comforted, and then they want to be kind of consoled by what the message. of the pastor's message, Sunday service. Look at this. Frame issues to steer people toward the desired conclusion, rather than informing them about the substance of any given issues. When you say something and there's a desire, you desire to conclude and steer towards the people towards the desired conclusion, rather than informing them about the substance of the given issues. That's why I was, when I was preaching at church in the past, and then I'm not a person really emphasize emotions and like this. I'm all, rather than this kind of reason and then kind of inform them about substance, the word of God. And one in the morning after one Saturday, one of Saturday, and then a kind of lady came to me after service, and then she said, your preach is really, really right and sound. But whenever I heard your sermon, and it's really my heart is burdened. That's my intention. So, where is our standard of life? God's word, not the current issues that we are in. Always look up to God and try to see and how we live with the word of God. It's not a kind of try to take advantage of the word of God, make excuse of our life. No, there's no way. I know we cannot do it, even though we cannot do it because understands me, please. We understand. I'm the same. I'm the same person, right? I'm the same person like this here. It's really a project of self-assurance, even though you don't know. Pretend to know, confident like this, and then rather than admitting uncertainty or ignorance, if you did know, right? But counter attacks or change of the subject. Counter text. Okay, listen carefully and counter text, and make them flow. And change the subject, even though sometimes you cannot say something and it's hard, and then try to change the subject rather than trying to answer tough questions. Avoid self-criticism rather than trying to correct your errors. Okay? I'm sorry, don't do that. And try to avoid, okay, and make an excuse and take a different way, and claim to have the whole answers, rather than admitting there is an independent expertise that is not on your side. Above all, talk to win, rather than to get at the truth of things. How do you think? Personally, I'm a Christian as a pastor. I'm a pastor, but I usually, when I communicate with the people, I emphasize it rather than this side, not the Hugo Eklo suggested. What about yourself? That's the trend of the world. That's education and communication skills. So what is the humility? Right? There is a society. there's a society and cultural trend. That's a part of in communication, and if you are communicating in organization and communicating with others, and I don't mean that it's not wrong, but they kind of the wrong, all of them is wrong, but we gotta think about it. We gotta think about, we live a life before God, even though we cannot see God, but we live a life before God. Not people who evaluate us and who criticize us and who respect us. And basic standard of the standard of life for Christians is the Bible. It's the Bible, right? It's not our theories. It's not a principle that we make for ourselves. That's why, and this age is really, when we are living in the spin by a lot of medias and news and then commercials, and then it's really, how can we have public image, good public image, right? How can we get a good and public relations with others, and how can we project ourselves to the public? This modern world, the world we live, forges a professional industry of the spinning news, press, and press release, and commercials, and marketing campaign, and regularly seek to change our perceptions. That's true. That's the spinning. That's true. That's the society, though. If we just follow the society, and then it's hard to think about the meaning of your life, the purpose of your life. Keep changing and changing. And immunoframe is that there's a lot of different spirituality, but there's no absolute, really plural, and really relative. That's the society that we are in now, living. So, how can we live the culture, to the cultural trend? So, Charles Taylor refers as a spin, and there was there's a spin, and it's an overconfident picture within which we can imagine it being otherwise. Right? We can imagine. So, because those who adopt the spin see their perspective as a simple, obvious, and don't understand how anyone could view things any other way, because just follow it. Oh wow, it's really nice, it looks good. Just think about the cars, models, every year they change it. So you cannot see the other side of life if you just follow, because it keeps spinning by, if you allow, right? And they try to smugly dismiss those who disagree with me. You just, that's true. Just follow, and then we are kind of left over, bullied. So people deeply observe the picture of a spin of the world as the underlying frame that why the process effort may not be exactly the same as the manipulative PR of the spin described above, which is consciously create the final plot look similar. It's not a manipulation, right? Spinning, keep spinning, and in the final, we are similar. There is no uniqueness. We really emphasize on the autonomy of the individuals. We really emphasize the freedom, personal freedom. But look at this, we are spinned by a lot of things, and eventually, like that. Whenever I don't like to go to movie theater, and usually I watch a movie at home, and then once in a while I take the kids to the movie theater because a kids movie coming out, right? Came out and it's really good and they wanna see, and then we went together, and after watching the movie together, and I always say something about that the world is different, perspective is totally different. My kids, when they heard my comment, they were like, you always said it. But nowadays they understand. At that time, they don't understand what they believe. The world is different, right? But nowadays, it's really fun and like a movie couple. And just think about it, it's really family oriented, and who consider what Mexican culture is like. And then we can know the Catholic influence on their cultures. But as a Christian, if you have Protestant Christian, if you just see the different perspective, worldview. We don't believe that way, right? We die and that's all. But there is no purgatory. And if you pray, if you do good for them, and then they are in purgatory and move to heaven, no, not like that one. That's a different theology and different worldview. I like movie though. I like a movie, but not just enjoying the movie and just without any evaluating the movies and see the different. Every movie is like that. They try to project something. In the beginning, there's just think about 10 years ago, and it's hard to see the kind of homosexuality in public. And like especially in shows and movies, but nowadays, it's very common. People are just kind of numb and not sensitive to anymore, right? Like this, eventually we become similar and same. And even I learned the other language like Indonesian and Spanish. I use the Duolingo. I'm learning Spanish every day, and then there is one character is lesbian. It's different. And I didn't know in the beginning, but as I learned her roles and her conversation is given in the app, but her grandma is kind of acknowledged that admit her sexuality, and a couple of days ago, and kind of about dating, and there's a lot of apps, and then try to post under the resume profile, and then try to match with someone, and then about that one conversation. What about, and so we gotta know that, and so we gotta know that what they are doing, and then we if we don't have the worldview, biblical worldview, and if we don't have not the values, right values of what we believe, and then just follow. So keep that in mind, right? And take is kind of, the second option is to recognize that our view of the world will take, why embracing a picture of reality and certain way of the inhabiting the world, and to acknowledge both and contestability of our view and pull and tug of alternative views. That kind of terminology they take, and then just to recognize we already are looking at the cultural trend and worldview, and then this is your worldview. We gotta know that. And we gotta see how they see the world. If we reject, and then it's hard to associate, right? There is a certain way kind of embracing, there's a certain way of inhabiting the world, kind of associate with them. But acknowledge a kind of contestability with ours, and then pull and tugs of alternative views. Eventually, as a Christian, also apologetics, defend our faith. But when you engage with the current cultures, and then if you don't understand them, we cannot engage with them. Just think about the society, and we are not awake. We are not aware of what the world is doing. We just follow them. That's why our worldview, the truths that we believe in, the values that we have, is really important. Another one is a thought, just think about the contextualization nowadays. We already thinking about, we talk about, how can we understand the world, and how can we find a contact point and relevance, and then try to talk to them, and then try to show the gospel in humility. That contextualization is there, and there is a lot of world tone, and then we are living the world, like postmodernism. It's not a modernism. So modernism is losing the power from against the what? The postmodernism. They don't believe it. There is no absolute truth. Depends on individuals. And there's our kind of attitude about how can we engage in the world, and then try to defend our faith. That's the attitude about. In the book, 212 pages, and then keep coming back to the cross, but willing to deal with the complex reality and questions. it's not easy dealing with the lot of the issues like homosexualities and that's one of them. And ethics and getting grocery and different faith like this. But what kids coming back to Christ, to Jesus? And they never simply appeal to emotion in order to manipulate. But be sure to take the time to understand the other person and deal with their question in a way that treat them as a holistic being. Okay, don't manipulate them. Take the time. If you are not sure, and take time. And I'm sorry, I cannot answer right now. Can we come back later like this? Don't manipulate. This is a whole being. Treat them as a whole being, not emotion, thinking. Process, and then how many years? According to a study, 4 years. Take 4 years to be a Christian. And admit that you are looking at the world as a Christian. You are not. If you are not Christian, no way. This is your apologetics and defense of Christian faith, right? So, while communicate with them, you are willing to try to understand where they are coming from. You can have empathy. But don't lose your identity, no? Okay? And be humble and admit area of personal weakness, uncertainty, and ignorance. Don't have overconfidence. Why affirming that you have a great confidence in your faith in Jesus for a variety of the reasons? Maybe you can use the Bible, your personal testimony. We already talked, and then a lot of different ways that you can share the gospel, but remember though, right? Be willing to discuss the tough questions, even though you cannot answer, willing to engage it. Rather than quickly counter-attacking or changing the subject. Don't do that. That is a bit of what the world can do. Be self-critical. It's the opposite way, right? Never admitting the weaknesses. We gotta acknowledge our weakness. And then, admit limits in your knowledge, okay? Not just don't change the subject, and then not to kind of, don't stir person to your desired purpose like this, and then rather than acting as though you are expert on every subject. No, not really though. I studied intercultural studies. I have more knowledge on that than other subjects. Even though I study apologetics and New Testament and all because subject relate to the branch of the theology, because I studied in seminary school for my MDB, right? But still, I'm not an expert. You know, I hadn't got the degree for people who have really experts out there. So I guide you guys to this is apologetics, and that's why I try to give them basic knowledge of apologetics, not a specific one. And then there's a lot of articles about specific homosexualities and others. There's reference books and recommended books and textbooks there. You can see and what kind of issues and how can they use the biblical method and Bible verses, and there is way that you can say, but maybe you don't agree with them, but basic the core idea of the Bible. So, even though I got a PhD in intercultural cultural anthropology, like with the missiology, but I don't know everything. Just think about every moment, I don't know how many articles are coming out every day, and then how many studies are coming out every day, and how many books. So my approach is a little bit academic, it's not practical. Practical is come from people from their practitioners, right? We can now prove it, but they use they use the principles from the Bibles and other disciplinaries, and then made their own program and support the peoples. But my job is to little bit study about them and people analyze like this, and based on the Christian perspective, because they are intercultural studies. Okay, so don't pretend that you don't know and you don't know. And there is someone my friends has PhD in intercultural studies, but he really got engaged in apologetics in school. So he is teaching and he had a broadcast, and so try to answer and try to defend the case, and this really has toured to a little bit different way from mine. But he's doing that one. Above all, speak with grace and truth for the good of other person, rather than seeking simply to win. That's a basic attitude about apologetic PR. Just the PR is totally different. Public relations is totally different from the Hugo Heckler, right? That's the tones and contextualization. Just think about how can we engage outside the world, and we are living in the world a lot of secular humanism. Humanism is a person is like a God. Person is like a God and capable. Individuals, persons are capable to do everything, right? Can control everything, can do everything the humanism also replace God with the human being. What about nihilism? It's really skeptical of the world and nothing worse and whatever. And nothing, kind of really nothing. What about skepticalism? Postmodern is skepticalism, totally against what? Take opposite way from the modernism. But sometimes we can communicate with them. But it's easy, but still they are trying to pursue the meaning of life. But because of the modernism and postmodernism influence, and they are self is at the center of their system instead of God. That's why it's hard. What about Islam and Eastern religions, Buddhism and Hindu and other religions? about how can we engage people in the world. That's our daily life. When you go to school, when you go to work, and you can see a lot of different people. Even though they are Christian, and depends on their denomination, depends on nowadays it's really, depends on what they believe. Some of them, they don't believe the Bible, but they say Christian, and then even though they believe the Bible, and there's a lot of differences in theology. Well, I will talk about the among Christians, and then, but when you think about the apologetics, and then we gotta know the basic truth. What is the basic truth? That is our foundation. That's a God we believe in. And what is the worldview? What is the worldview is there? We have a lot of different worldview, right? And if you have a different religion, and then you have a different worldview. Worldview means that we cannot see, but kind of a perspective and window, and then you can see the world and understand the world. That's worldview. I always told you basic Christian worldview, right? God's creation is good, and fall, and redemption, Jesus Christ's redemption, and He's coming back. It's kind of a straight line, and at the end, and then Jesus Christ coming back, and then what? That's a Christian's history and worldview. What about the Hinduism? Hindus' worldview is totally different, right? Circular, always. Like Buddhism, you die and coming, and born again and different. Always circular. And just theism and atheist, and then what? And then agnostic and different. So we believe in God. We believe in God. Who God is. Just think about the truth that we believe. What worldview we have. And these, sometimes atheist is hard, and there is no God. And agnostic, something is that we don't know. Revelation. What is a revelation? God manifested Himself. So nowadays, a lot of people just depends on the theology, and some of them say they only believe the Bible, right? But another, it's not a Bible, but still, I know God revealed something like a charismatic. Jesus Christ died on the cross, and Revelation is you can see the Bible, and the resurrections, and the gospel. That's a basic idea about the apologetics and showing it, and then just that's our part that we needed to know very well. What about the resurrections means? And what is the gospel? We said it. Declaring what? Who Jesus Christ is, what he has done, what's the promise about his work. That's the gospel. And I know it's not easy, but just basically if you wanna be, that's why in our level it's a little different, but if you read the Bible and then if you read books and then it's a little bit, we gotta know that what we believe. Little organize your knowledge. And then you can talk to other people. If we don't know the basic, you just go to church, and I know I go to church and serve, and then our church prays really good. I'm in the praise team. Sometimes it doesn't work when you someone who really want to talk about faith. Just come to our church. Maybe that's evangelism. Maybe one of the way of the evangelism, but it's not apologetics. Apologetics is what? Defend your faith and then try to get rid of the barriers for the people who are looking for looking for the truth and then who want to really understand the truth. And then lead them to what? Gospel. Jesus Christ. That's apologetics, right? Not just a crash, the people, against the people who are talking. It's not just your apologetic is not real over like opposite people like this, all right? Like this, and then not just thinking and simply real over, right? Okay, and next week we're gonna talk about the rest of the part and a little more slides, and then we can talk about the article that I gave you, and then if you have time, and then we can talk about the basic frame of the biblical sexuality. It's a really popular and then gives you a basic idea. It's not as specific as expert, and then we can see it. Okay, so if we wanna develop the apologetics, and then we gotta know the all very well, right? So prepare ourselves first, and then try to engage with others, and then always be humble. You don't have the right knowledge of the Bible, and then just I don't know, and acknowledge it, and then you can look it up, and then you can ask someone who is expert and talk back. And if you cannot handle it, and then you can connect the other people to the expert. That's the way that we can win. All right, and then see you next week, and then maybe continue of the rest part of the cultural trend nowadays, and then we can wrap up the class. Okay, you guys, and have a great week, and take care of you very well, and God bless you. Bye.